Tony Wright, First Love Christian Church, or FLCC, and AB Wright Ministries. Look, you know what it is. 90-day Bible study, day number 12. We're in Numbers, 21st chapter, 8th verse, through the 32nd chapter and the 19th verse. Look, well, last time we saw the Israelites, remember, they were dancing around with the fiery serpents, and many of them were just dropping dead. So as usual, they cry out to Moses, and as usual, Moses prays to God on their behalf. Look, now, God told Moses, he said, make a serpent hanging on a pole. And then God said that anyone that's bitten, if they look up at the fiery serpent, that they would live. So Moses made the serpent, made it out of brass, and just like God said, for those who have been bitten, they survived if they looked up to the brass serpent. Now, Israel, at this time now, they're on the move. And according to what God told them, they're going to be on the move for the next 40 years. So Israel had come upon the land of the Amorites. And this land was ruled by King Sihon. Israel had, they had asked to be able to pass through the country, but King Sihon wasn't having it. They were denied. Next thing you know, they're being attacked by King Sihon. And guess what? Israel defeated the Amorites, and they drove the Amorites out. What? Look, the Amorites were one of the most feared nations around, man. But they were no match for the nation of Israel. And nation after nation was going to be taken asunder by this God-chosen nation. The Israelites then headed toward the region of Bashan, where King Og ruled. And he led, his entire army out to meet Israel when he saw them coming. Meet them in battle. And the Lord said to Moses, don't be afraid of Og. I'll help you defeat him and his army, just like you did King Sihon. The one that ruled over in Heshbon. Og's territory will be yours too. So the Israelites, they wiped out Og, his family, his entire army. There were no survivors. Then Israel took over the land of Bashan. Then they moved on to the hills of Moab. Man, they are cleaning house. And they camped across the Jordan River from the town of Jericho. But when the king of Moab, Balak, when he heard about the Israelites, he heard they were there and what they had done to the Amorites, this dude panicked. You hear me? They told the Midianite leaders that Israel was wiping out everything. They said, Israel, they're like a bull eating grass in a field. Man, I'm here to tell you, when the Lord is on your side, buddy, this stuff is something. So Balak, he had a plan. He was going to send a message to this dude named Balaam. And the message said that Israel, they're too powerful for them to defeat. So Balak needed Balaam to come over and put a curse on Israel. What? Put a curse on Israel? Where God dwells in the tabernacle? Somebody should have told him that might be an idea, but it is not a plan. Anyway, the messengers, they went to deliver the message and the money to Balaam, right? So during the night, they spent the night. During the night, Balaam, he was told by God that the people that Balak wants to curse are blessed by him and not to go over to Balak. So Balaam didn't go. Now when the messengers returned, Balak sent another group of messengers. Go over to Balaam. So God told Balaam this time that he could go, but only if he told Balak exactly what God said to tell him. Then God sent an angel when Balaam was on the way to block Balaam's way while he was en route on his donkey. Now the donkey saw the angel, and 3 times Balaam was trying to get around it. So the third time that Balaam tried to go around the angel made the donkey talk to Balaam. You say what? You say a donkey talking? Listen, man, the Bible said that God can make stones to cry out. So donkeys, not a problem. Anyway, Balaam arrived, and Balak wanted to know why he was delayed in coming. Why didn't he come the first time? So Balaam told him, look, I'm here now. But he also told him that he can only tell Balak whatever God says. So this king probably should have just given up, trying to get that curse put on Israel. That was not going to happen. So after Balak's initial offering, Balaam ended up telling him that God, did not curse, nor did he condemn Israel. And though Israel was many in number, that they were just living alone in peace and not bothering anybody, not bothering any of the other nations. And Balak, well, let's just say he was less than happy about that. He asked, what are you doing? I brought you here to curse my enemies, and you blessed them instead. What are you doing? Then he told Balaam, look, we need to move to another location with a smaller number of Israelites, and then maybe you could curse them because it's a smaller number. Well, this was a no-go too. Balaam pronounced that Israel's king was God and that he lives there with them. And no magic charms, none of that is going to work against them. Boy, Balak was about to blow. He told Balaam, look, if you can't curse them, at least don't keep blessing them. But Balaam told him, hey, I told you, I can only tell you what the Lord tells me. I guess the only thing that I can say about Balak that's positive is he didn't give up easily. So he told Balaam that they needed to try another location. Okay, and what happened over there? Well, Balaam told Balak that whoever blesses Israel, God will bless. And whoever curses Israel, God is going to curse them. The same old thing. Strike three. Balak was furious. He told Balaam that he wasn't going to pay him anything. But Balaam said, look, I already told your messengers. It didn't matter how much you were willing to pay me. I could only tell you what God tells me. Man, you have to go back and read the first three messages that Balaam delivered to Balak. It is deep. Now, before Balaam left, though, he gave Balak a warning about what the Israelites would do to his country one day in the future. Boy, and while you're at it, you need to check that out again, too. Speaking of checking things out, we need to reach back over and check the Israelites out, see what they're up to. Bzz, fast forward. Let's do this. What the what? Turns out that while the Israelites were camped at Acacia, some of the men had been, getting busy with some of the Moabite women. And then they attended some ceremonies where sacrifices were being offered to the Moabite gods. And they ate meat from the sacrifices. And they worshiped the Moabite gods. What? Come on, man. They just don't learn. God's judgment was that every man involved was to be put to death in front of the tabernacle tent. I've been trying to tell you, God is not playing with these people anymore. And God has set a plague against them. And it was only the action taken by Eleazar's son, Phinehas, that caused God to shut down his anger. By the time he shut down his anger, though, 24,000 men had died. God blessed Phinehas, though, and his seed with a peace covenant for his devotion. So God told Moses that they needed to go against the Midianites now and defeat them to avenge that attack. So Moses had to complete another census and allocate the land that they were going to go occupy when they got into their promised land. Now this new census, though, was for the new generation of Israelites. Remember, the old generation was going to die out in the 40 years in the desert. The only ones that were older than 20 from the previous census that were going to be there were Moses, Joshua, and Caleb. Then God told Moses to go to the Mount of Abarim so that he could see the promised land. So he was to go before the congregation later, the same way that Aaron did, to begin a transition to a new leader for God's people. Now, Moses was not to go forward into the promised land because of, if you remember, striking the rock back in the wilderness of Zin. So God told Moses, take Joshua with him and go before the congregation. And he did just like God commanded. Now, one thing I noticed about Moses, especially at this stage of his life, he was least likely to be upset about anything concerning himself. He was upset really when he felt like he was letting down the people under his charge. Even when they veered off of what he was, showing them. He was more likely to accept some of the fault as though he had shown them something wrong. Or that he had misconveyed something to them. Boy, Forrest could teach some of us leaders a few things, especially some of the leaders that never do anything wrong. It's always somebody else's fault, somebody else's shortcoming. You know what I'm talking about. But Moses, quietly, calmly, always accepts his lot in life. Anyway, Moses took Joshua, went before the congregation, and Eleazar, remember, that was Aaron's son that he had turned the position of high priest over to. Moses laid his hands on Joshua, and he charged him just as God required. Now, after going through some offerings that God had, required of Israel, and the feast that they are to observe, yep, the battle command was given. Boy, and Israel, they were off to avenge themselves against the Midianites. They killed 5 kings of the Midian. And they killed Balaam too. The dude that Balak sent packing when he wouldn't curse the Israelites. Yep. And all the spoils from the battle were brought to Moses to be divided. Now, did you check, this army out, Israel's army? Moses sent 1,000 men from each tribe. And they had tens of thousands in each tribe. So only 12,000 of the total number went to fight. No wonder old Balak was in a state of panic, huh? Boy, hey, we have to get out of here. We've just gone past the dozen, though, on our way to 90 days, brothers and sisters. And if you're rolling with us on the Daniel fast, you're about to hit a week and still going strong. So, yep, keep reading your word and keep checking us out on your favorite social media platform. And please, don't forget, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, FLCC, we're still on the move, taking ministry back to the first love. Peace.